I'm Florence and I'm a third year pharmacology student and I'm currently completing a placement at Alciomics in Newcastle.
I went out to Sweden and worked for AstraZeneca for the year. I was based in their early phase drug discovery team.
So I'm Elise and I did my placement at Elanco, which is a pharmaceutical company. So I worked as a fermentation development scientist.
So I spent about half of my year working in protein engineering and then moved across to evaluate a new biochemical assay.
My placement is predominantly based in the lab, where I derive primary cells from skin biopsies and primary immune cells from blood that I can use in various immunoassays for client work. But I also do a lot of business development work.
For me, it was the independent lab work experience. I also was treated like a proper member of staff, and it was nice to know that the research that I was doing was actually contributing to the company.
The best part about doing a placement for me is the actual exposure to a 9-to-5 job. I've only ever worked part-time or during the summer, so actually it's quite different working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
I can't pick a best part of it. I loved it all. The work was interesting and challenging, but I also loved the whole experience. The year working was fantastic, as was the travelling, being able to live in a new country and see a completely different culture. It meant when I started my final project I could hit the ground running because I'd spent a year working in labs. I understood how they worked, where things were, and it meant I could become independent a lot more quickly in the lab and really make the most of the time I had for my final year project.
Doing the placement really helped me with my final year project because I had a lot of experience in the labs and I was more confident in my abilities. I also had experience in writing up a lab book and a technical report, so this helped with the dissertation.
I loved my placement, but it did also make me realise that a career in the lab wasn't for me. So being out and working for a company meant I had all the opportunities to speak to people that were still working in science, but in a real range of different areas. And the one which stuck with me was patent law. So for example, I had the opportunity to sit down one-to-one with one of the senior patent attorneys at AstraZeneca to get a far better understanding of what the day-to-day job actually was.
Doing a placement helped me with my career decision because I knew that I enjoyed lab work, so now I'm going to complete a PhD, and it really helped with the PhD application and the interview. So because I completed a year in industry, the Masters wasn't necessary because I already had a full year working in labs.
My name is Mark Flanagan. I'm a senior research scientist for Quantum DX here in Newcastle. Quantum DX is a company that is developing disease diagnostics.
My name's Shahida Ahmed. I'm senior scientist with Alciomics Limited. We test compounds for the pharmaceutical and the cosmetic industry to see if they're safe for human use.
Prosomics is an enzyme producer. Essentially, we discover, produce and supply enzymes into the pharmaceutical industry.
The benefit of a placement is basically to make that student stand out. So what makes them different to the other graduates is the fact that they've got this vast amount of experience, and alongside with your academic abilities, any employer is always looking at how experienced you are and what kind of skills you've picked up as well.
It's an invaluable year which should always be looked on quite favourably by potential employers. Talking from my perspective, I would love to have done a placement, to be honest, when I was at their stage. It gives you a lot of lab experience, it gives you experience outside of academia, dealing with different people from a lot of different backgrounds in a fast-paced environment. We see people come in and they just become part of the team. There's no sort of distinction between our assay technicians and our junior research scientists and the placement students that we have.
A placement student basically gets full exposure to the companies, and then they also have the opportunity to go out to meetings and conferences and present Alciomics.
The research that I actually did contributed to the company, so it wasn't just a separate project for students, it was actually going to be used for the future.
I think the best advice is to definitely go for the placement, because it gives you a lot of insight into what you want to do in the future and gives you a lot of direction as well.